We're here at our number one picks. What is your number one pick?
Dun 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 dun
Oh.
dun 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 dun. Mission Impossible, but which one? Which one?
Which one do you
Ryan,
pick?
what's your prediction? Which stunt do you think I'm talking about?
I think you're talking about. See, I know you.
Yeah.
I know you really well. You would think it's the Burj Khalifa, but
Uh-huh.
I'm thinking it's the. You're gonna go OG, and you're gonna go the CIA sequence in the first film,
No, it's
which
the
is
Burj
iconic.
Khalifa. I'm going with the
Okay.
Burj Khalifa from
Damn it.
Mission
All right.
Impossible Ghost Protocol, a scene I remember seeing in the theater in IMAX
Yeah, that's
and literally holding my breath in the theater. Just freaking me out. Not much of a heights guy. And if you're not super into heights and you watch that Burj Khalifa sequence and realize that it was done practically, it just breaks your brain. Tom Cruise, absolute madman. Ghost Protocol, far from my favorite Mission Impossible movie, but that
What's your favorite?
Even though I think it's really good. My favorite's Rogue Nation, then Fallout, then Original Protocol 2, and then 3. I hate 3. I
can't believe that you have 3 above 2. That's just a sacrilegious thing to do. There's something
Philip
wrong
Seymour
with
Hoffman
you.
is great in it.
Yeah. That's what it elevates. That's why it elevates it over 2, because Dougray Scott is just so bad in that second film. It's awful.
J.J. Abrams' direction in 3 is a war crime.
I think John Woo totally just does not work in 2. And there's like 45 minutes.
I think it's interesting. Anyway,
there's 45 minutes of 2 that's awful.
Good director. Brad Bird, good director. Should make more live action stuff, in my opinion.
You should make a movie, period. How about that?
Yeah. I 100% agree. But this sequence, I mean, you see the behind the scenes stuff of it where Tom Cruise is just attached to all these ropes, being an absolute madman. This was really the start of him trying to one-up himself and just become the greatest stunt movie star in history. This was really what started it. When he'd done plenty of impressive stuff before, but this was the one. Because after this, it's the strapping himself to the side of the plane, then all the stuff in Fallout.
It's the stuff underwater,
jumping
too, in Rogue Nation.
Yes, yeah. Jumping the motorcycle off a cliff and basically base jumping.
Yeah,
it's he's one of the greatest action stars of all time, and this was his magnum opus. I mean, this just blows my mind that he was willing to do this, and the way that it's shot by Bird and company. I think it just ratchets up the tension with every shot, and the idea of these very Mission Impossible-y gloves that you can stick onto the windows,
and then one of them malfunctions.
Creative, they start malfunctioning, and it's
he's got to kick in the glass.
Incredible work, yeah. And then
he's
at the end, him jumping through the windows, a little goofy, but it is scary and thrilling. It's just a sequence where genuinely, I was in the theater and I was just like, I don't like this. Oh.
God. And
that's also why it's so great, because I didn't like it.
Well, there's so many great things too about the way Renner goes you're a little short, and he goes, no shit. You know what I mean? And there's good comedy with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. He's what? He's talking to Peg as he's climbing up. Yeah.
He's like, it's a little bit closer.
It's the best.
A little bit closer. And he's like, shut up, get out of my ear. But then also too, so Jay, there's 2 things I always love about it, and it's behind the scenes stuff too, which is always so great about this scene. One, you've seen the photo of him getting on the tip top of the Burj Khalifa, sitting up there, and them taking a photo of him, right?
Yeah, he's an insane person.
Yeah, and they didn't have a harness or anything on it. So he, the greatest movie star in the world, could have just for a photo, just for a a little quick, just clip, went up to the top of that building via a helicopter, and they somehow got him back in the thing. And then you've heard about the story that Matt Damon's told about him having dinner with Tom Cruise, because they met up, like him and Emily Blunt did a movie called The Adjustment Bureau together, and like while they were
Mm.
shooting Edge of Tomorrow, Damon went and visited him on set, and they had dinner, and Damon talked about like how he was so curious about this sequence in particular, and how he got it made. And Cruise was like, "I've been thinking about doing this thing for like 20 years or whatever it is, like for a long, long time." And so he talked to the safety guy, right? And the safety guy is, and
Before
he
the
tells him
building
the whole,
existed, I guess.
he told him like the whole thing, right? He's like, "This is what I want to do, and like this is how we're going to do the sequence shot by shot." And the safety guy goes, "Yeah, you can't do that. That's impossible."
Yeah.
So
Do you
Matt
know
Damon
the
goes, "So then what did you
insurance
do?"
we'd have to take out for you?
And so Matt Damon goes, "So what did you do?" And he goes, and Cruz goes, "So I hired another safety guy." and he and he and he hired a guy essentially to say yes, so that he could go do it. He's a man, is what I'm saying. He's a man.
I can't. I love how Damon is so willing to talk about those stories. He's
Man,
he's
especially to Bill Simmons. To be
he's a
fair,
great
too, like
interview
yeah, he really is.
because nobody else will talk about the dinner they had with so and
Or
Damon's just like,
the
yeah,
or the stuff with Jack Nicholson in The Departed. Have you heard that stuff?
I've heard. I don't know that I've heard about The Departed. I know there's that great story where he was on Rounders
Yeah,
with
with
Malkovich,
Malkovich.
who
If
was
you
doing
pay
that
me my
crazy
money,
accent.
yeah.
And Damon was just looking at him like, dude, what is going on? And Malkovich just said, here's my secret. I'm a terrible actor.
He talked about it like with Nicholson, that scene where he shoots the guy in the march, and it's basically just like a setup of like, on paper Costello shoots a lady and everything. He's like, but if you let me play out the scene a little longer, and he goes all the stuff that happens after he shoots him is all improvised and all added in by Nicholson. He's like, I wanted him to be a really sick individual. And like Damon's like, how like half the things that Nicholson does in the movie is improvise because he's so sick and he's so like connected to Costello that he's like adding all this stuff, and he's like, that's how he's a genius, but he's also like scared out of his mind of like going to hang out with Jack too, like all the different stuff. Yeah, like Damon's a good guy. Like I mean, he's got some questionable stuff about like the language he uses from being in the Boston area. But other than that, yeah, he's a pretty good interview. It sounds like, for sure. But yeah, that sequence, perfect, perfect. I'm glad that you picked it, Jay. Um, Being the Mission Impossible head that it was, I just kind of penalty boxed them, because if I
Yeah.
did, I would have picked 5 scenes from Mission
Yeah.
Impossible and would have been done with this list. And you know how much I'm looking forward to Dead Reckoning Part 1. Fallout was in my top 10 that year. It's now my number 1 film from 2018. Like,
Wow.
I've watched that movie like 15, 20 times since it's come out.
What's my
It's like one of
2018
those, if
most
it's on
likely?
TV, I'm watching Fallout. Like, what are we, like, if they do Rogue Nation and Fallout back to back on FX like they do all the time, I'm stuck in my chair. There's no getting up. I'm not doing, my day is done. My day is done. That's what I'm saying. So,
I need to rewatch it.
yeah. Oh, you got to do all of them. Maybe you'll move up 3.
I think I am going to try and watch them with the wife.
Has she not seen them?
Mm-mm.
My wife's seen them, and she's like, please stop making me watch these movies. And I'm like, I can't. They're fantastic. So
I'm looking at where's my 2018 here? I'm going to find it. Oh, here we go.
here
Yeah,
you
it's in my
go.
top 10.
Yeah, I know it is.
Coming in at
Also,
number 7.
God, if there's one thing that they can come back with from Fallout to Dead Reckoning Part 1, bring back those bongos. Bring back those bongos.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah. Oh, what a slapping score. Anyway,
Great score.
my number 1, which is I think a really good action sequence from, I mentioned this again, from a good director that I think does pretty good job with action, wears their homages on their sleeve, really takes a send up to a lot of great directors before, great directors we've talked about, great directors we've talked about even on this episode. I'm taking it from Quentin Tarantino, and I'm choosing The Bride versus the Crazy 88. I think that sequence
big time honorable mention.
absolutely fantastic. And Jay, I don't know if you've seen Kill Bill Volume 1 on the big screen, but
I've not.
it completely changes your perspective of just how fantastic this scene is. Because when you watch it at home, you're just like, yeah, cool, she's killing everyone. It's great and everything.
I mean, I think
But
it's pretty great, even though I've only seen it at home. But
but then, man, when you just watch it on a big screen, you hear the sound work. Obviously, you see the directorial decisions Tarantino is using again. This restaurant club space. The fact that the kills feel they all feel very different. There's a we already know, if you watch the film from the beginning of the movie, you already technically know based off the list that she's already past this point, but you're still at the edge of your seat. And the idea of Uma Thurman with a sword going against maybe not 88, but a lot of guys and killing them in various different ways
mm-hmm.
is absolutely fantastic. And then there's, obviously the first time she rips the eyeball out of the one guy,
Yeah.
but then that switches then the perspective to black and white. And it's because, of course, at the time the MPAA was like, this is
Yeah.
too bloody, even for our standards, Tarantino. If you watch the whole bloody affair, if they ever release it, it's all in color. If you watch it in the regular cut now, it's all it flips back black and white. But then of course that gets to go back to old samurai films and him have another flourish there that that is deeply embedded within samurai films and action films. Then of course it flips the you flip the script in when she's inside this other small room where there's like 8 of them there, right? And it turns pitch black, the lights get turned off, and it kind of turns into like an action film, like a modern action film too, where it's just silhouettes, and it's just that, and then the light turns on and you have the one kid that is gets with the Yakuza that shouldn't, and she kind of like just kind of with her sharp sword slices down his and
Mm-hmm.
everything. But it's pure adrenaline. And then also too, what's so great about it is you get the Tarantino needle drops that go alongside it. These sort of modern, these great just soundtracks that fuel his films. I think of his action sequences a lot lately are aren't as like really as just, I mean, like I like his action sequences, but I don't think about them in his movies anymore as I did with something like Kill Bill, because it is an assassin's film. It is a
Mm-hmm.
revenge flick. It is so it's the melding of everything. It's like we know his character has to get to this point. She has to go through this blood-soaked army. It almost feels like a director being like, I'm never going to be able to make as giant of a death sequence as something like this. And then of course, like 2 films later, he like essentially like blows up the Nazi regime. But like it has all those great things that you want to have a Tarantino movie, but then feels so uniquely him. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
it's working with just a badass in this movie, which is Uma Thurman, and giving just this great physical performance. And you feel her. Like we talk about, you could talk about this with Wick, or you could talk about this with Ethan Hunt in the Mission Impossible series, but the bride, or Beatrix Keto, as she's known and revealed later, in this scene, she gets beat up a lot. There's a lot. She's not a superhuman superhero. She limps away a lot. She's got a lot of
Yeah.
things going on.
The
There is
John Wicky
obviously
thing going.
yeah, she's got a little suspension of some belief, but there is a lot of different things going on in this, and it is a long, long sequence, but it really is able to just do so many things within one primary location there in that room. And what I
Mm-hmm.
love too is just when it's all done, Jay, the moaning and the like groaning of all the dead guys, or the guys that are barely hanging on, and then the hostess of the of the bar, or like the partial owner or whatever, kind of looking around in the pure horror of everything
Yeah.
that it's around. And a kid like myself in 2003 watching it was in pure horror of like, how did they just get away with doing all that
Yeah.
in a modern film? And only one person could do that, and that's Quentin Tarantino. So The Bride and the Crazy 88s, that had to be my number one pick. And when we thought about doing this list, I was like, this has to be there. And I just love it so much.
certainly have it written down here. Tarantino, honestly, kind of underrated as an action filmmaker.
He
I think
really
he's really
is.
creative. Django, ending of Django,
Hmm.
the ending of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, honestly,
Hollywood.
is a really
Well,
good action sequence.
even the choreography between the fight sequence with the much talked about Bruce Lee and Brad Pitt fight
Yeah,
sequence in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the chase sequence at the end of Death Proof, pretty great.
yeah, really good.
Um, you know, so there's he's that Tarantino. He knows how to do action. He's pretty good at
Yeah,
it.
he's good. The My wife still talks about very regularly. She'll bring it up how hard I laughed when DiCaprio busts out the
The
flamethrower
flamethrower.
by the pool. She's like, I don't think I've ever heard you laugh that hard before. And
And that's the moment she said, "I want to have a baby with you."
yeah,
But
exactly. Exactly. No,
no,
it's an incredible pick. I mean,
yeah,
it's definitely have it written down here. It's a great one. Absolutely great one.
I gotta tell you, my audience. You mentioned that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood sequence. Man, when he did pull that out, that whole audience just like it was like again, it was another one of those just like we were packed at a 35 millimeter print screening of that, sold out, and everyone when
Yeah.
that happened and that music kicks up, everyone's just like, oh hell yes, like it was
Have you
it was like
what's
a unanimous like yes.